Missouri Congressman Jason Smith is here, the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. Chairman, great to see you, and thank you for coming on. Where do you stand with your concern of fraud and maybe some of these House lawmakers that don't seem to be giving it the time that it deserves?
You know, members of Congress should be focused on making sure that hard-earned taxpayer dollars are being spent appropriately without waste, fraud, and abuse. There's so many areas in government that we have found wasteful spending, but also fraudulent spending. We've highlighted the $400 billion that was stolen of COVID unemployment fraud that we've been trying to get back. And then you look at what's going on in Minnesota. It's unacceptable. Unfortunately, the Democrats that I serve with in Congress have just ignored fraud. And I don't know if it's simply because they are benefiting from fraud or they like what's coming out of it. But it's a huge problem. We have to address it, and we have to hold people's feet to the fire.
Do you think, and just talking to you now, do you think there is corruption, specifically in the state of Minnesota? We've heard allegations of that kind before. Do you feel that way?
There is no doubt that there is corruption throughout the state of Minnesota. When you look at almost $9 billion being fraudulent, think about this. Just feeding our future. One of the former non-for-profits took over $250 million of federal dollars that was supposed to go feed the hungry. But in fact, it went to mansions and luxury cars. That is corruption. Those are people that should be held accountable. And what's even worse is that entity lost its tax-exempt status in 2020, 5 years ago.
You know, to your point in terms of corruption in the state, the Wall Street Journal put out a recent opinion piece on the fraud scandal in the state. And the headline reads this: Minnesota's fraud problem isn't immigrants, it's the vast size of the welfare state that corrupts them. So this opinion piece, again, keep that in mind, from the Wall Street Journal, seemingly letting the Somali fraudsters off the hook for their alleged crimes, squarely putting the blame on the system itself. What is your reaction to that?
Well, if you look at just fraud all across the board, as the president has halted funding in various states to look into making sure that the money is being appropriately utilized and spent, it's super important. But if you just look at the Obamacare exchanges, we requested the Government Accountability Office to look into the waste, fraud, and abuse within the Obamacare exchanges. They found 59,000 dead people that were being subsidized. They found one Social Security number was tied to more than 125 different policies. This is terrible. There's so many areas of waste, fraud, and abuse, and we have to have a full court press. Every player on the field has to be going after this.
Over on CNN, host Abby Phillip has been very outspoken in her criticism of the Shirley investigation, the one that went viral. She offered this take on the fraud scandal. Listen to this.
Because the actual victims of this fraud are probably actually Somali families.
I think
I don't know about
victims
that. Yes.
are taxpayers.
Taxpayers
Victims
lost $9
are
billion.
people who
Somalis are taxpayers.
They're
Hold on. They're actually
They are
not
announced.
Yes, they are.
I want to get into data.
Hold on.
Yes, they are.
80% of them are on welfare.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, obviously it gets to a point where you don't even understand what they're talking about because the argument precedes itself. The arguing does. Who are the victims?
Well, those comments are completely out of touch with reality. The victims, without a doubt, are the taxpayers. They're the ones that's being abused for the hard-earned dollars that they've worked for, that they were then taxed for. But you know what? Even money that was sent overseas from Minnesota to, a lot of people believe, to fund terrorist regimes, that is a huge problem. So there's victims all over the world by the rampant abuse of fraud within the state of Minnesota.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.